Hello booktube, hello book friends. Welcome or welcome back to my channel and another video. This is time for my reading week update for week ending the 22nd of February 2025. So the books that I have been reading or am reading in the last week. So let's get started. Last weekend was the wasted weekend, the 6 month stopgap before Garb August or between Garb Augusts. My original plan, as I think I mentioned last week, was we had family plans and I wasn't really going to be able to participate. Like all good plans, they came crashing down probably the minute after I posted that video. Basically, members of the family started saying, I can't make it, I'm not very well. And it just looked like it wasn't worth trying to do with so few of us. So we've rescheduled for, I think, next weekend, I think, if everything goes according to plan. So in the end, I did have some time to indulge in reading trashy fiction, and I decided to read the novelisation of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I'm glad I did, because although it's obviously a novelisation of the film and is very close to what happens in the film, there are subtle differences, and there are scenes in this that obviously didn't make it into the final cut of the film, I'm guessing. So particularly there are scenes where the kind of German Nazi side of the story is played out in a little bit more detail. So yeah, that was a trashy, really interesting read, and some fun kind of things to find out in there. That, you know, although this is it's one of my favourite films, there are things in the book, or that were perhaps in the original script, that didn't make it into the final cut of the film. So yeah, very interesting, and enjoyed that. I then picked up it's Holmes is Where the Heart Is, as you know. I've mentioned it a few times, and I this week was the pastiche fiction. Now my original plan was to read The Fifth Heart, which was the kind of group read and is a pastiche, which I did and I've talked about. And I was toying with the idea of just having a week off of Sherlock Holmes, and then I thought, no, I can't. I must indulge. So I picked up a copy of the 7% Solution, which I've had for an absolute age and have never read. And I enjoyed it. It was okay. It's not. I have a problem with pastiche fiction of any variety, pretty much. So I think it was fine. It was an okay read. It's pastiche. Enough said. And then I went on, and I have done a separate video about this, or a separate vlog about this, which, if I get the upload sequence right, is probably the video that preceded this one. And I read Carla's Choice by Nick Harkaway. Again, this is, in a way, also a pastiche. But the subtle difference is Nick Harkaway is David Cornwall, John le Carré's son, and he has written it very much in his father's style. I won't go into too much detail because it's in the other video. Suffice to say, this was a really good read. I enjoyed this, and I think if there are more Nick Harkaway / John le Carré books to come, then I think the kind of it's in safe hands, put it that way. So yeah, I enjoyed that. That was a good read. I also finished a book that I've had or have been reading for quite some time, and I just kind of I put it to one side a while ago and didn't come back to it. Just no particular reason. And it's The Walls Have Ears by Helen Fry. This is a history, Second World War history book. And it's a fascinating read. Basically, this is the story of one of the branches of sort of military intelligence, or branches of military intelligence, so MI19, MI6, and various others, who during the Second World War, when mainly officers, but not exclusively officers, were captured or surrendered to the British, so predominantly German, but also Italian. They were essentially imprisoned in initially in the Tower of London, but then later at three other stately homes around the country, and they were essentially there to be interrogated. As officers, they were interrogated to hopefully gain secrets from, or details from them about, the disposition of the Axis forces, any plans they might be aware of, and so on. The difference is, in a sense, the face-to-face interrogations were a ruse. The bulk of the intelligence gathering was happening when they were back in their respective rooms and dormitories, which had all been bugged with microphones and listening apparatus, and the interrogators were listening in to the conversations they had when they went back to their rooms. And so they were put in kind of rooms of 2, 3, 4 people, and they come back and I said, well, how did it go, and what did they want to know, and they wanted to know about this. And I didn't tell them anything. I didn't tell them that we're about to do X, Y, Z. And it's in some ways it is quite funny that this is the way that they got a lot of their intelligence not from the interrogations, but just from the fact that the officers would go back to their rooms and gossip about what they hadn't told them, and obviously they were completely telling them everything that they wanted to know. So this was a really fascinating read, and there was quite a lot of intelligence that came out of those recorded conversations that helped in the Second World War. So and the vast majority of them didn't even think that they were being bugged. I mean, there were one or two who kind of thought, well, I'm sure the room is going to be bugged, so I'm not going to say anything. And then if that was the case, they were just removed and taken somewhere else. But yeah, it was a fascinating read, and some of it is they were treated very well. So not only were they effectively staying in a stately home, but they were giving them sort of privileges that I'm certain that the other way around, where it was our officers who were captured by the Germans, we didn't get the privileges that they got, but it was done to get from them the intelligence and so on, that helped probably shorten the length of the Second World War. So yeah, I would recommend that. That was a fascinating read. What am I reading now? I am reading a George Simenon Maigret novel. I picked this up last night purely because I'd finished The Walls Have Ears, and I was like, what do I read next? I'm not quite sure. So I just thought I'd pick up a Maigret novel, and it's going to be a short one. And there's two reasons I know it's going to be a short novel. Is one, the page length. In this case, I think it's 155 pages, but it's the typeface. It's a very large font. So yeah, I think it's one of it's one of his early ones. I think it's the second or third book that in the series that he wrote. But yeah, it's obviously one of the ones that he wrote quickly to get some income. But yeah, it's good so far. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's the crime has been announced, but there's lots of investigation still to do, I think. So it's going to be interesting how he manages to wrap that up in such a short space of time. And then, as I mentioned, Holmes is Where the Heart Is. It's the last week, this coming week, which is non-fiction week. I'm a bit Holmesed out at the moment, so I may or may not read this, but my plan originally was to read A Study in Southsea, which is mostly about Arthur Conan Doyle and his kind of time. He lived in Southsea in Portsmouth, which isn't very far from me, and I'm just I'm interested. I've had a quick flick through, and this it's well illustrated with pictures, and in some ways there are so there's maps, and so there's pictures of the pier, which doesn't look a lot different to how it looks now, if I'm honest. So yeah, I haven't decided whether I'm going to read it or not. I would still like to read it somewhere this year, but I may save it and read it. May read it later on, or I may just get on with it. I don't know. But yeah, that if I read it, that's my non-fiction pick for Holmes is Where the Heart Is. And that's it. That's all I've got to say for this week. So if you have been, thank you for watching. And I will speak to you again next time. Take care now. Bye-bye.